Welcome once again to Character Study. I am John Fortt here with my main man, David Tieche, and this is a podcast about scripture, about the Bible, but through the lens of people, looking at the characters in the Bible, what they reveal to us about our relationship with God, about God's relationship with us, how we look at ourselves as we seek to follow Christ. And right now, we are in kind of a Jacob cycle. We've talked about Rebekah, his mom. We've talked about Jacob. And today we're going to talk about his second wife, his, his favorite wife, Rachel. Family dynamic still messed up.
Yeah, that's funny. We're going to spend next week on Leah. And she's like, why does Rachel get to go first? So already there's some rivalry. So, and that's like, even as you were introducing, it's like, oh, wow, this is super messed up.
His second wife, Rachel, who he married the day after his first wife, her sister, Leah. To recap, Jacob is the second born, much like his wife Rachel, in a dysfunctional family of favorites. And Jacob is Isaac and Rebekah's son, and he is prophesied, though, by God while he's still in the womb, wrestling with his brother Esau, to be the winner, to rule over his older brother. And his mother works to make sure that that's the case when it comes to getting a blessing and all of that. So he steals his older brother's blessing by tricking his blind father into giving it to him with his mother's help. And then he runs away because his brother's literally going to kill him. And he runs away to find a wife among the people.
Well, you got to skip something. He runs away and he's in the middle of the desert and he's got this prophetic vision that God's with him. And then the story picks up after that. So, sorry, continue.
Yeah, that is a key detail. The whole Stairway to Heaven thing. Many songs have been written.
Many
some of them
songs.
church songs. Actually, mostly not church songs. Mostly,
mostly Zeppelin songs.
Mostly Zeppelin, but people have religious experience with Stairway to Heaven. And so he goes and he finds a wife among his mother's people as instructed by his parents. But instead of finding a wife, he finds two wives because his uncle Laban is really tricky. He wants to marry Rachel, the younger daughter, but her father sort of dresses up the older sister and puts her in the tent on the marriage night instead. Whew. Yeah. Switcheroo.
He works for 7 years. So if Jacob's a trickster, we haven't talked about Laban yet. We'll get to him later. Laban is just almost double the trickster that Jacob is. He meets in Laban the very thing that he did to his family, Laban does to him, and to humble him. So it's a pretty interesting comeuppance, as they would say.
There's a lot of tricking. And at first, when you read this, you might think, oh, he had to work 7 years for Rachel, but got switched to Leah. And now he has to wait 7 more years before he can get Rachel. But actually, he sort of gets a layaway plan. Actually, it's not layaway. It's an upfront payment. First one's layaway. Second one is buy now, pay later.
Right.
Yeah.
But he does have to work 14 years for the two wives.
He does have to work 14 years for the two wives, but which one of us doesn't really when you consider credit card debt today? I mean, and that's not a gender thing. Wives working for their husbands as well. Everybody's working. I mean, paying off that wedding. When you get married,
there's a financial implication, right? There just is, right? There's a
wedding.
Yeah, sure.
Weddings are
Everything is shared. Everything's shared. Everything's brought into this. Yeah, totally.
At least he didn't have a mortgage. It's like it's 30 years now. 14 is kind of a bargain. You think about it that way.
That's a fast track mortgage. Yeah.
Yeah. So say back to the Bible. Now that we've talked about mortgaging wives versus houses. Ugh. Um, it's kind of a very different society where women are treated as property. We're not there anymore. But let's take a look at the character of Rachel, because there are multiple snapshots and moments about
Yeah.
what she's like,
Yeah.
how she is different from her sister Leah, and also there's some things here that I think foreshadow um, other characters, important characters who are to come,
Sure. Oh,
and
absolutely.
ways that God is going to interact with Israel, and ways that God interacts with us.
And
So,
hyperlinks back too. There's lots of hyperlinks back.
for
So
sure,
we'll look at those too. Yeah.
let's get those two. So, start us off, Dave. Chapter 29.
Yeah, so the way we do this is John and I both choose two verses that we think illuminate something about the character, but we don't tell each other which ones we've chosen. So it's a little bit like it's gambling. It's a game of chicken. Like, will he choose the same verses that I do? We try to go a little bit chronologically. Okay, so I have chosen. I'm going to get mocked for this. It's in verse 29. It's not the first time we see Rachel, but it is one of the key details that the biblical authors used to describe Rachel. And it says, Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. So that's where
Yeah,
I'm gonna stick there. It's which I know it's character study, but we're gonna, I guess,
yeah,
look at.
not figure study. It's
But
character study. This is not it's not an art class, Dave.
well, that's funny, but it is interesting that Rachel's beauty is one of her dominant characteristics. And I started thinking about this last night. I was like, it's kind of weird. It's like, is this weird sexist? Like, why does the Bible keep describing all these women as beautiful? Um, because Sarah's described as incredibly beautiful, right? And so is Rebekah. So each of the matriarchs is described as beautiful, but her beauty is really kind of a core aspect of her personhood. So I thought that was kind of interesting. The Bible does make a big deal about her beauty.
What's also interesting is that her sister Leah is not described as beautiful.
She's described as the opposite, kind of.
Well, but in a weird way. It's not said that she has a bad figure, or
No,
that she some particular feature of hers is seriously out of proportion, but her eyes.
yeah, there's we'll get into this probably with Leah. There's a weird idiom, and I looked at this in all the commentaries, and I couldn't get any clear answers. That Leah, it says in the text, I'm in the NIV. It says Leah had weak eyes. It's just this weird idiom for, and they can't quite understand. Does that mean sometimes the word weak is described as tender? Does she have tender? So she's got like a really good personality behind her eyes. The eyes are like the window to the soul. So like, is tender better here? Does she have a tender soul, or is weak eyes? It's contrasted to Rachel's lovely figure and beauty, so it's probably a contrast. Whatever it is, it's like maybe like Rachel's a looker and Leah's kind of not. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Like, does she weak eyes? Does that mean they're kind of droopy, or does she have a lazy eye?
does she need to
Is
see an
it
optometrist? Does she just need contact lenses? Um, it's a strange idiom, but it seems to imply that she's not as beautiful as Rachel. It's either she's
and
plain or dull.
often, yeah, in ancient cultures, there's this way of looking at somebody's eyes or their nose and reading it almost like tea leaves as to what sort of person they are, or
Yeah,
whether they're a good match for someone. And
yeah,
there's that scene in Crazy Rich Asians, right, where the grandma looks at oh, is her name Rachel too? Looks at the girlfriend's nose and says that it, like, there's a good omen there, and the mom is all ticked off because she doesn't like her, right? So it reminds me of that. Like, maybe somebody looks at Rachel's eyes and at Leah's eyes and was like, no, she's not great, So she sort of
yeah.
gets shoved aside until her father. I mean, maybe this is in a way heroic of Laban. This is the way he's gonna get Leah taken care of. he swaps her in. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so to your point, this sets off a contrast and sets Rachel up from near the beginning as being beautiful. The first thing that's mentioned about her is her job. She's
Yeah, that's
with
up
sheep.
in verse 9 because I'm in 17. In verse 9, we meet her and she's actually a shepherd. She's caring for the sheep, kind of, which is not the easiest job. It's very outside. It's very physical. Um, she's doing some hard work, agriculturally and um, animal husbandry or whatever. I don't know, farming, no, ranching, I guess. Um, and so Rachel comes with her father's sheep. She was a shepherdess, and this kind of reminded me. I don't the like one daughter is like outside with the sheep and doing the hard work, and the other she's presumably back at camp. So this kind of ties perhaps to the Jacob Esau dynamic that we just read about. Esau was a man outside; he was kind of a hunter, and then Jacob loves to be near his mom in the camp. Maybe there's a kind of a contrast there or a tie back there. That kind of is what it reminded me of.
Could be. Also, though, it makes me think of David, who we meet later in the Old Testament,
Yep.
who, when Samuel comes to anoint a king from Jesse's sons, Jesse brings out all of his older, taller, more qualified looking sons. And Samuel's like, nah, none of these. Don't you have any more? Oh, yeah, there's David. He's out with the sheep. It almost seems like he's cleaning the bathrooms, right? Like that's the little brother's out doing the
Right.
dirty work sort of thing. And it makes me wonder, it's not that I can think of, and we'll thoroughly explore the scriptures here, but it's not mentioned that Laban has a particular favorite here. But if he does, perhaps it's suggested it's not Rachel, because I mean, if Rachel's out with the sheep, that seems to be something. It's kind of a bum job if we read into David's situation later in the Old Testament. And then he doesn't do Rachel any favors by giving Leah to Jacob first. I mean, if we're going to read into it, perhaps Laban has a soft spot for Leah.
Oh, that's interesting. But regardless of what, we don't really know that Laban, but we know for sure where Jacob's alliances lay. Like his favoritism is 100% with Rachel. So it's also interesting. In one of my Bibles, it has the Hebrew names, and it's Raquel is the name of Rachel, which reminds me of Raquel Welch, which is kind of a famous supermodel in the 60s and 70s. And it reminds me of that famous movie Shawshank Redemption, the poster that hangs in the cell of the supermodel is Raquel Welch,
Yeah.
and she was known for her beauty too. So it's kind of funny, even in the Hebrew, Raquel just reminds me culturally of Raquel Welch, and also Rachel Green from Friends. Remember when Friends came out in college? Everyone was like, "Who's the prettiest? Is it Rachel? Is it Monica? Is it Phoebe? Who's the coolest? Who's the best?" And I think Rachel clearly won that battle culturally. Most she was like elevated. So it's kind of an interesting. Even her name kind of culturally kind of stings in me as a symbol of beauty.
For sure. Uh, and so pulling it forward a bit, then, um, if we look at now 30 verse 1, how the story advances.
Yeah, that was the super shallowest way to describe her. We're going to get deeper here. So we went super shallow. It's
Please
important
do.
though. I mean, let's be honest though. It's important because beauty and womanhood and identity have been tied since the ancient world, right? So there's something here that we have to reckon with, that the Bible is honest about. It does not, now beauty is not going to prevent Rachel from suffering. It's going to cause favoritism, which is going to cause all sorts of problems. And God's activity in her life is certainly not contingent on her beauty in any way. But it is worth noticing. And I'm a dad of a daughter, and like since my daughter was 5, she's had like deep insecurities about her own beauty. She would look at her and compare herself to other girls. She's got super curly hair and she like hates it. Meanwhile, her friends who come over who have straight hair, they're jealous of her curly hair. I wish I had your curly hair. I wish I had your straight hair. I wish I had your curly hair. There's endless competition. Yeah, this
Is
is
one
a
of her
thing.
is one of her friends named Rumpelstiltskin by any chance?
No, 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 no.
Okay, that's good,
No.
Dave. If
That
a
is
if a little short dude wants to come over and is obsessed with your daughter's hair, her golden hair, do not let him in.
Stay away from that, right? Hey, just grow out your hair. Just throw it down. Yeah. So it's just a thing that I see even and she's in dance and she was in gymnastics and there's all this sense of comparison and who's beautiful and who's not, and even in the beauty industry there's tremendous, or TikTok now, like who's beautiful. Women can get followers simply by being beautiful, and so there's a lot like, oh, she's so pretty. There's so much going on here about beauty that still continues today. It is something that we need to reckon with. It's a thing that is in the scriptures, So I don't know. It seems shallow, but there's actually some movements underneath it. So anyway, I know that I just don't want to be seen as some sort of weird sexist who only talks about how pretty
No.
Rachel is.
I
Anyway.
mean, we talked about Sarah and Rebekah. The Bible is mentioning these things. It's not the only thing that the Bible mentions, but there is
Oh
something.
no. I'm just saying it's the
Right?
first foray. Let's go shallow and go deeper. Anyway, what was yours?
We're just gonna. Yeah, I guess there's only so far we can go into that. But I do want to explore like what is the significance of these various character traits that we're seeing mentioned, because the beauty is there. And in Sarah's case, it's like, okay, well, Sarah's Abraham's wife and the mother of a great nation, etc. Rebekah too. But interestingly, and we'll talk about Leah later, but Leah is actually the mother of most of Israel, not Rachel. And she's not so good looking. So, I mean, you would think if the message were, hey, Israel, you're from good stock, all your mamas were pretty and your daddies were smart or whatever. That's not the message, because if it were, then the prettier one would have had the most kids, but that's not the way this is set up. And so I wonder, what is it about, what is the Bible trying to say lineage wise and legacy wise, even because Joseph and Benjamin, like into the future, aren't necessarily the far away best tribes. I mean, Benjamin actually has some icky stuff later on as a tribe where it's sort of like, that's not necessarily the best legacy that you want to leave. So interesting to me that although in this story Rachel is being set up as the pretty one, it doesn't necessarily mean that she's the good one. This isn't necessarily the Disney princess trope where pretty equals good for all time.
Right. Well, I mean, you could make a case that Joseph is the most important character we're going to meet next, and she's his mom. And Rachel is remembered as a key matriarch because she has a son in the southern tribes that's going to go on, and that's Joseph, or sorry, Benjamin. And then Joseph is kind of synonymous with the northern tribes. So she's remembered through the rest of the biblical narrative as the mother of Israel. But you're right. The where's the Messiah's line? It comes through Judah, and that's
right.
That's Leah's side.
And
so
and
Saul get value.
Saul is from Benjamin, right?
Right, Saul. Yeah.
And so that's not fantastic. There's some
right. I see what you're saying. Saul, the Old Testament Saul. In case you're following along.
King Saul.
But yeah, Old Testament Saul, and that doesn't turn out great. Yeah.
Right. So that's just what I'm saying, is that it's not like this is set up as, oh, well, the pretty favored wife has the good tribes, and then Leah, like, she's the bad one, like the wicked stepsister, or, the unloved older sister, her kids are bad. I mean, yes, maybe her direct kids are kind of bad in the way that they treat Joseph, foreshadowing a little bit there. But when we look at Israel as a
But let's be
whole,
honest, that was kind of Joseph's fault. We'll get into that later. That was
he was a little bit of a brat.
yeah,
He was,
super
yeah,
brat. I would say
brat,
super duper
brat.
brat. So
Super brat.
yeah, who among us, right? I'm an only child, but even I wanted to throw him into a pit. You know what I'm saying? So but right, and well, the other side of this is Rachel. Well, we're not there yet, but Rachel's beauty doesn't save her from deep suffering, and there's some real pain in her life that's pronounced, and so that's we'll get into that later too. So it's not like, hey, this is Disney princess and everything goes well. That's certainly not what the story says. And an opposite for Leah, just because things aren't great, doesn't mean that God doesn't move in her life and do amazing things too.
Well, let's talk about that. The first passage that I picked is also chapter 30, but
Okay.
verses 14 through 24. So what's happening
Oh, you
here?
did the whole mandrake. You did the mandrake thing, huh?
The mandrake thing.
All right,
What is
talk
a
about it.
mandrake anyway? I don't know. Apparently, it's a phallic vegetable. Kind of like an eggplant. I don't know.
Phallic vegetable, also a great name for a punk rock band. Just so we're clear, if John and I
Sure.
ever start a punk rock band, maybe phallic vegetable would be a great name.
Or you could call it mandrake. Either way, also a good name.
Also works.
But what's happening here, once we have this situation where Jacob is tricked by the sister's father into marrying both of them, it says that God sees that Leah is unloved, the older sister, and opens her womb, right? So she's going to have kids. But Rachel is barren. So this calls back to Sarah's situation, the grandmother, who also couldn't have kids for a long time. And Hagar, who her servant, who she gives to Abraham, who does have kids, and it sets up this dynamic between them. But interesting to hear, even though these sisters have been pitted against each other, they don't seem to be really bad kids, right? They're not like Jacob and Esau, where they're at each other's throats
Right.
and actually trying to kill each other. They don't seem to be trying to trick each other or get anybody evicted the way Sarah did to Hagar. Granted, they weren't sisters, but still, they seem relatively civil. This is like our Dave, our feelings about polygamy are well documented on this podcast, but they seem to have a system where it's like, whose night is it with Jacob almost as well, and that comes out here in this passage. So, chapter 30, Rachel sees that she's not able to have kids, so she, I guess, goes into the family playbook, Jacob's paternal family playbook, and says, "Oh, let's have him get with one of my servants, and she'll have a kid for me. Behold, my maid Bilhah," she says in verse 3 of chapter 30, "go into her that she may." So it's a couple different. She doubles down on it, not just one servant. It's like a sweepstakes. But later on, she's not giving up on having her own children, and the oldest child, Leah's child, her nephew, Rachel's nephew Reuben, goes and finds mandrakes out in the field, and these are apparently, again, phallic vegetables, and in the superstitions of the time, there's some kind of fertility aid, I guess. And
yeah,
Rachel asks her sister for the mandrake. So, verse 14, Reuben went in the days of the wheat harvest and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." And Leah said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" And Rachel said, "Therefore he will lie with you tonight for your son's mandrakes." So it seems what's happened here is Reuben finds these mandrakes, which must be rare, brings them in. Rachel's like, "Hey, can I have some? You see my situation." And Leah's like, "Hey, you took my husband. You're going to take the mandrakes too." Now, technically, as I'm sure Leah knows, Jacob didn't want to marry her in the first place. So the whole
Right.
take my husband thing is a bit of a stretch. Rachel could have said something, but to her credit, since this is character study, she's diplomatic. She has something she wants. She wants these mandrakes, and rather than go off on her older sister, Jacob wants you anyway. I don't know what you're talking about. Took your husband. Daddy had to swap you out under a veil for you to even, right? She could have gone there, but she has her eyes on the prize being the mandrakes wanting to have kids. And she goes, hey, how about this then? In exchange for those mandrakes, you can have my night with Jacob. And Leah's like, bet. And gives her the mandrakes. And I mean, this is one of my verses. I probably should have extended. Jacob comes in from the field. Leah goes out to meet him. And she's like, you're mine tonight. And Jacob's like, this feels familiar, right? I think I'm getting one sister and I end up with the other. What's going on here? Now they're doing this to me themselves. And God listened to Leah and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. I mean,
Right.
talk about doing laps around the competition. Leah's
Yeah,
Usain Bolt here. And
is it at this point it's 5-0, right?
5-0. And not
That's
the police.
that's almost you can't surpass that. That's like, yeah, you're not catching up, right?
Yeah, this is like hockey. This isn't football.
Right.
5-0 deficit is hard to come back
from. Yeah. So you know what this well, obviously, doesn't this super remind you of somebody trading something important for vegetables? I mean, didn't we just see that with the bowl of lentils with Jacob and Esau? Like, what is it with this family and like vegan dishes? I was like, why are they so big on vegetarian food that they're, trading away important things, right?
It's important to Jacob anyway. I mean, it's not like birthright or anything, but it was a night with him. I do wonder about the superstitions in what should be a monotheistic household, right? I mean, at this point, we have the legacy of Abraham and Isaac. Now, granted, Rachel and Leah don't have this, but Jacob does. And clearly, his sense of relationship with God, I would argue, has entirely created the whole thing because they've got the superstitious thing with mandrakes where Rachel thinks that's what's going to make it happen for her pregnancy wise, not prayer, right, and connection with God. And so he trades away the night for these mandrakes. And the occasion seems to be here in scripture is on that very night, her sister gets pregnant, right? So she, by going this superstitious, more idolatrous route, Rachel gets the opposite outcome of what she wanted. She doesn't get pregnant. Leah gets pregnant.
Right.
Again.
Yeah. It reverses. Yeah.
Yeah. After her womb had been closed, sort of. Like, there's an implication, I think, at the end of chapter 29. Okay, her round of baby boys is done, right? But now it starts again after the mandrake transaction. So that part is interesting to me too. Leah says she hired Jacob with the mandrakes, and she ends up having a fifth son and then a sixth one, right? So it's let's see, Issachar, and then Zebulun. And then a daughter too. I mean, she goes on a run. This is a rough third quarter for Rachel. Leah is running up the floor with these kids.
Yeah, and then I suppose that what comes out of that is verse 22. Then God remembered Rachel, which is really important. This, God remembering people is a way of, we see that in Genesis 8 when God remembers Noah, so that's a callback there. And then it says he listened to her. And that calls us back to earlier when Isaac prayed on behalf of his wife, and it says the Lord answered his prayer. and heard him, and then his wife Rebekah became pregnant. So so that's an important moment um, for her, right? For Rachel, and it's not because of the mandrake root; it's because God remembers her, right? And
And
that
listened, and listened,
endless,
which
yeah,
he
and then enabled her to conceive. So he remembered, he heard, and then he heard her prayer, and then he moved in history, right? So this is a big deal.
now we haven't gotten to hear it. We haven't gotten to hear her prayer. But the idea, I guess, is that she is talking either to God or she's certainly talking. We know that she's talking about her pain at not having kids of her own. And so God is listening. So she bears a son. And when Rachel had born Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me away that I may go to my own place, my own country," etc. So I'm not sure what it is about that triggering event where he's like, okay, now it's time for me to get out. But Jacob's motivations are very Rachel centric through
Oh,
this.
completely.
But
Yep.
Rachel, to her credit, now on the plus side for Rachel, she doesn't seem to be a mean person. She could be lording this over Leah. Yeah, you might have all those kids, but he likes me more. We don't see evidence of her doing that. Um, she she bargains with Leah for the mandrakes. I guess if she were a certain kind of person, she could have tried to get Jacob to make Leah give them to her. Maybe Jacob wouldn't have done that because he'd been like, "That's superstitious nonsense anyway. You need to pray." But again, going back, like regardless, this isn't a toxic sibling rivalry like we've seen with Jacob and Esau, which is that echo of Cain and Abel. This is an uncomfortable situation, but they seem to be handling it relatively well. Now, on the negative side, there's this superstition thing. There's
Yeah.
this
Well,
idea that she went to the
it's interesting.
mandrakes.
Yeah, but even the mandrake is like, it feels like just one symptom of another. Like earlier in verse 30, and I don't think we talked about this, when Rachel saw that she wasn't bearing Jacob any children, it says she became jealous of her sister. Okay, you're right, it didn't turn into toxic, but it's here. And then she says in a deeply emotional sentence, give me she says to Jacob, give me children or I'll die. And then Jacob gets angry with her, which is interesting. And he says, am I in the place of God? God's the one who's kept you from having children, not me. And then what does she do? She
He
does
does
another
have
mandrake.
he does have an A/B testing situation.
Right, right,
He's like, clearly my equipment is working,
right.
right? Like we don't have
That's
to.
super, yeah, that's super funny. No, I'm 6-0 on the other one, so it's obviously not me,
It's
which
not the
is
ball, it's
interesting.
the hoop, is what he's saying, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So then she does well. Then Rachel does what her grandmother did, which is the exact same play, which and we
Well,
have
Rachel's
to.
not even
The
in it.
writer,
Rachel. I mean, that's not her grandmother. That's Jacob's grandmother.
oh right, I mean yes,
Yeah.
grandmother by marriage or
Right.
whatever,
Right. Right.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The matriarch two ahead of her. She says, "Take my servant so that you can conceive and I can build a family through her." The exact same playbook, right? The exact same thing, which also is. And then she says, "God's vindicated me. He's listened to my plea and given me a son," which isn't really even true. It's her servant. So that's she's trying to keep up with the Joneses, or in this case, with the Leahs, in any way she can, and it's not really working, right?
It's not working, but interesting here too. God didn't make Rachel any promises.
No, he did
So
not.
God made Sarah a promise about
He did.
being a mother, like you will have your own kids with Abraham. God made Rebekah a promise in a way, not to her, but a prophecy about the older servant. There was that kind of birth time connection about here's what's going on with you. I'm going to give you some insight into the future. Rachel gets nothing. She gets swapped out for her older sister on her wedding. And let's just imagine that, right? She's super happy. She's getting married, and she loves who deeply loves her. She's clearly there through the whole ceremony. You may kiss the bride. I don't know if it's like that exactly in their tradition, but you can imagine.
Sure.
He does get to see her at some point during the ceremony, even though the way we imagine it on the wedding night, she's veiled, which I don't know about that. I'm glad we don't do that anymore. But this is this great moment of hope and expectation for her, and her father swaps her out for her older sister. And she has no promise from God. And as we can see, I know in the way that the tribes of Israel fill out, all of her older sister's sons are completely legitimate fathers of tribes of Israel. This isn't a situation, and the servants too. This isn't a situation where this apparently was completely outside God's plan. You know, Hagar gets tossed out with Ishmael, and they're not even in the story anymore. This is very much the story. All of Jacob's kids stay central and are in the story. Rachel just wasn't promised to be the primary means through which the promise to Abraham coming through Jacob, Israel, is going to play out. That's kind of tough.
Yeah, and yet God is gracious to her. God remembers her and gives her two kids that are going to be very important in the rest of the narrative. And so there's that part too. You know, she's not promised these things, but it's very clear that she deeply desires them, and God hears that. And also, it kind of messes with her sense of identity, it feels like, when she can't have kids, right? She starts grabbing and taking matters into her own hands, like with mandrakes and servants, giving servants to her husband. You know, the same thing that Sarah did, taking, matters into your own hands, right? So we'll see her superstition and her less than stellar understanding of what it means to trust Yahweh a little bit later. But there's some grace notes too. God remembers her. He listens to her, and she conceives.
One is left to wonder. At least I am. Had she not done that, had she not pursued the shortcut, can we presume?
Good word. I like the word shortcut. I think that's the right phrasing.
That God intended for there to be 12 tribes, and that those kids, somebody would have had those kids. Maybe it would have been Rachel if she hadn't shortcutted it. Maybe she would have actually conceived those kids. But God was just like, well, Jacob's going to have 12 kids. So if you want to throw your maid in there and do it that way, that's your choice, but there's going to be 12. Here's the clicker. Right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's possible that they would have been like, okay, well, the 9 tribes of Israel, we're gonna make do with that. But it seems, I don't know, it seems unlikely to me if she hadn't done that.
It's still, like I think about the term double blessing. You know, you've heard that term. It's going to come up later. Even if Rachel counts her servants' kids, it's still 8-4, which is a double portion. You know what I mean? So that's kind of interesting. 8-4, Leah.
For sure. So we know that after Rachel gives birth to Joseph, Jacob says, all right, it's time to get out of here.
Time to leave.
Yeah. Interestingly, the daughters have no objection. Later, there's a conversation where Jacob brings them together and says, hey, look, your dad has just been awful to me, tricking me. He's impossible to pin down. And I think we ought to get up out of here. And the scripture in the passage that I have says that they answered him, which is interesting to me because it suggests that they were in agreement, right? Like they had the same kind of thing to say to him. Despite this tension between them, despite this jealousy, this imbalance, they're still able to operate as family. And the second passage that I chose is Genesis 31, 34 through 35. So this is after they hit the road without saying goodbye to Laban, because probably because they're concerned that he'll try to trick them again.
He'll do one more thing, right, to trick him, right?
He's always got something up his sleeve, always an ace up his sleeve, this Laban guy. So they're on the road, and he catches up to them. And let's see. Little preview in verse 26. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done that you have deceived me and carried away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and didn't tell me that I might have sent you away with mirth and with songs, with tambourine and with harp?" Yeah, right. And didn't allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now have you done foolishly. It is in the power of my hand to hurt you, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful that you don't speak to Jacob either good or bad. Well, clearly Laban listened, because he's got a lot to say here. Now you want to go on, blah, blah, blah. But why have you stolen my gods? This is weird. Why have you stolen my gods?
Yeah, I think it's like little idols, like local. Anytime I hear the word local god, I think of
The Romeo and Juliet soundtrack.
Romeo and Juliet soundtrack. For some reason, I associate that with you. We used to play that soundtrack nonstop. It's like a little local god, and whatever Laban's local idols were. And then we have real narrative tension, right? He's like, I didn't steal anything. And in fact, if you find anyone who has your gods, that person shall not live. So he makes some sort of terrible vow there, because he doesn't know that Rachel's actually taken the gods, which isn't great.
This could be bad. This could be bad, because this is like a version of something that happens later in scripture where someone swears an oath saying, the first thing that greets me when I come home, I'm going to sacrifice to, right? You don't want to do that. And it turns out to be his daughter. So here we know
that was a foolish vow that guy should have repented for, because he knew that Yahweh did not want human sacrifice, but he didn't know that because he wasn't steeped in the ways of Yahweh. So he should have just repented that vow, and instead he kills his daughter, which is super messed up. But we have you're right. This is kind of a preview of that story. Here, Jacob makes a vow because he doesn't know, but what he's vowing is like Rachel's going to die. Not good.
Also a foolish vow. But in this case, Rachel is from a tricky family, and
right,
she calls upon her genes, not Jordache, but DNA, and so it says, now Rachel had taken the teraphim, those are the idols, put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt around all the tent but didn't find them. She said to her father, don't let my lord be angry that I can't rise up before you, for I'm having my period. He searched but didn't find the teraphim. Now, it's like she knows the one thing that she can say where he's like, oh, yeah, just stay up there, right?
Oh, the period woman thing, right? Dad and daughters.
Don't even want to think about that. But also, certainly in Jewish tradition later on, once the law is passed down, but I suspect one suspects that this was not some thing that was done in isolation with no kind of pre-existing law or practice. A woman on her period was perhaps unclean, or the things that she touched were, while on her period, unclean. So really what she was sitting on, he probably shouldn't be touching anyway, right? So she was double ensuring. So, okay, I'm sitting on it, so I'm not coming down. But even if you make me come down, you don't need to be putting your hands all over what I was sitting on, right?
Yeah.
So it's probably not true what she's saying about being on a period. We don't know. But here she's tricking the trickster, her father.
Right. Doesn't seem like she's lying? I mean, come on. Like, she knows she's in trouble, so she's using her cunning. Just like she used her cunning to get the mandrake root and use her servant. I mean, it's a lot of the same thing, right?
But why'd
she take the idols, man?
Yeah.
Like,
So
why? What that? I think that shows like a low view of her theology, which is God's later going to get real mad about this kind of stuff. Like, don't commingle your local gods with me. Like, I'm not a local. God is like very clear. I'm not a local God. Like, Yahweh's not a local God. I'm not like a regional God. I'm the God of the cosmos. Like, I'm the creator God, right? So this, I'm not only higher, like these little local gods, like they have nothing to do with them, right? This is early in the story, but we're starting to see kind of already them. Rachel's like almost like hedging her bets. You know what I mean? It's like very, very weird.
well,
And
that's
it,
what I
it
wonder. And I don't we don't have a clear indication in scripture why she took her father's idols. Did she
mhm.
take them because she wanted their protection or believed they have power? Or did she take them because of what the impact on him would be? So
Oh, you're
did
saying she took him in order to like almost like neuter him or make him insecure?
well, it seems to me that Jacob is leaving Laban with wealth. Jacob is leaving having accumulated wealth from Laban, despite what Laban has tried to do to him. So clearly, the God of Jacob is more powerful than the gods of Laban. And surely that must be evident to his daughters, because when Jacob has this conversation with them about leaving, they're like, yeah, our father has spent our inheritance. He's selfish, he's greedy, he's been all about himself. Let's get out of here without saying goodbye. So it doesn't seem like they believe that there's anything that Laban has that they actually need. So it opens up the possibility to me that Rachel is taking Laban's gods not because she believes that there's something in Laban's essence that they need to carry with them. They're getting away, going away, and not looking back. But maybe because she's upset that Laban has spent their inheritance, that he has been so selfish, and that he has been such a taker. And so, darn it, she's going to take something from him on the way out. There's that possibility, at least.
Yeah, yeah. To your point, the Bible isn't clear. I always took it as some sort of like a superstitious or familial attachment. Like it was either like that's kind of how I took it. And then she lies about it. I thought of it as like some sort of deep insecurity as they leave. Will they have enough protection for her and her kids? I mean, this is the mother's heart, right? Are we going to be okay as we get out of the protection of Laban, who's clearly powerful and resourceful, right? They're going to strike out on their own. Are we going to have enough? I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure our family's okay. This is what a mother's heart does, like provide for her kids, make sure that her kids get, every advantage competitively they can get. Little SAT test prep, get them into the good schools, little local gods. We'll just sprinkle in all of it. That's how I took it. I mean, I could be wrong. The Bible doesn't, and I'm imparting a whole bunch of my own understanding culturally. That maybe it's very difficult to go back to. That's kind of how I took it. But
That's how I took it also, but I'm leaving open the possibility this time because the Bible does give us Rachel's motivation for the mandrakes, right? It tells us really that she wanted some fertility help, and so she
sure,
was superstitious and she wanted these mandrakes. It doesn't give us a motivation for her taking the idols, and from my recollection, it doesn't give us any example of her actually praying to them, because that would have been
no, it
evident.
doesn't. No, no, no. That would have been real bad. You're right. But she does hide them and lie about it. Um, so maybe she knew it was bad or
Oh,
not right to
clearly,
do. It's
yeah. I mean, it's like capture the flag, right? It's like,
yeah,
it just it. So that's why I'm open to the possibility that it's not about believing in the idols. It's about severing ties with her father and taking something that represents him, right? He's clearly not godly. He puts his
correct.
trust in other
You're talking about
things.
Laban. You're talking about Laban.
Laban,
Oh
he,
yeah, for
he's
sure.
not godly. He puts his trust in other things, And so is
And his
she?
kids don't like him.
Yeah,
His kids don't even like him. Rachel and Leah are like, what did they say? Something like, he regards us as foreigners. He hasn't taken care of us. He's sold us. He's used up what, surely all the wealth that it says, what in 16, surely all the wealth that God took away from our father belongs to us. Do whatever God's told you. Maybe she's just trying to take to hurt him, like, and maybe that would actually be a better reason. You're right. We're not, if she prayed to them, that would be all bad. So maybe this is just like, I'm going to hurt dad. I'm going to get some stuff. We can sell it later. These are trinkets that dad wants and he wants them and I'm going to take them. Maybe, yeah, that would actually be kind of good in a way, right? Or
yeah.
not
And
good, but like comeuppance.
in a way, it's like kind of lighting the fuse as you walk away from the house, like just
Yeah.
blowing it up, for good measure. Making it because did he run after them because he really wanted to kiss his daughters goodbye, or did he do it
No, didn't seem like it.
because his
I think
idols
he's
were
he's
missing?
I think he's mad because somebody took something from him and he doesn't like anybody to take anything from him. That's the kind of sense I get from Laban. We're not here to litigate Laban. We'll do that later. Laban's not a great character, dude. He's 5 times trickier than Jacob, right? And worse.
Right, and we will explore that. But the other thing that I find interesting about this idol snatching exercise, she takes them, she puts them in her bag, hides them, is that it makes me think that she must have told this story later to a little boy named Joseph, because when we explore his character, when he tests to see if his brothers have changed, it involves taking something,
Hiding an
putting
idol.
it in a bag, and
Oh, that's
sending
interesting.
somebody off with it, and then
Yeah.
finding it. He finds it because he knows where it is, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sets off, right, this it triggers this deep test. And it just, the idea of hiding something of value in a bag that not everybody knows is there, and using that as a pretext to do something, just it seems like too great a coincidence that
That's a good
Joseph's
point.
mother does this by taking Laban's idols, and later on, this kind of contraband in a bag idea is going to
Yeah.
come back. But Rachel, I think it's fair to say, is a mysterious figure in that she's not deeply connected to God. She has pretty privilege, right? She's a pretty sister. She has that pretty privilege. But she's also tragic in that
Hmm.
she gets married second, even though Jacob wanted her first. She doesn't have kids. She doesn't have a promise, but she seems like a decent person underneath it all, because she doesn't, from what we can see anyway, take it out on Leah or anybody else in a way
Yeah.
that, like Sarah did.
Yeah. I was thinking about her legacy too. I think about her legacy every Christmas, because Rachel dies right near a town called Bethlehem. That's obviously a link. And then later on, when in I think it's in Jeremiah when the siege happens. Yeah, it's Jeremiah 31 when the siege. I just looked at my notes. I don't have that memorized, just so we're clear. Uh, uh, I wrote it down. Jeremiah 31. When the empire of Babylon is going to come in and conquer Jerusalem and lead away all the children of Israel to exile, it says that Rachel weeps for her children. She's kind of seen as the matriarch of Israel, and she's weeping for her children. And that verse is used by the biblical writers in the early stories of Matthew when Herod comes and kills all the children. Rachel weeps for her children as well. There's a deep sense of sorrow and lament in Rachel's story. She dies in childbirth, and this is a deep tragedy. And her story does end with real sorrow and lament. But there's hope in it too, because she dies near Bethlehem. The one, her progeny would go on to be, Joseph saves all the family, and her progeny would become the two southern tribes, which are the remnant, the faithful remnant. of Israel, and she's seen as a matriarch in the line of Sarah and Rebekah. So she's mentioned in the same breath, not Leah. So she's elevated. Her story is tragic, but it's also, there's some beauty in it as well. It's a commingling, and so I think that there's something there too. That's how I reflect on it. Like a mother losing her kid. There's some real sorrow with Rachel's story, and it's really kind of tragic, right?
For sure. And I asked you last season when we were talking about Sarah and Hagar, which you liked better. And you were definitely Team Hagar. I think we both were, just from a modern looking back perspective on what kinds of people they showed themselves to be through their actions. I think the Rachel Leah thing is closer. Even though
Yeah,
by
yeah,
our
yeah.
modern standard,
Agree.
Leah was hated, and so you tend to sympathize with her, and so she had the kids, and but she sort of teased or lorded it over Rachel a bit. You don't see Rachel really giving it back to Leah that much. She has some iffy spirituality, faith moments, certainly with the mandrakes. There's the question about the intent behind the idols. But then, like you said, she's elevated in scripture later. And I think it's a big deal that in this atmosphere of familial dysfunction, where you've got Jacob tricking Esau, and with Rebekah's help, then you've got Laban tricking everybody, right? Jacob, Rachel, right? Tricking everybody. These two sisters, though they're in a bad situation, they don't really mess each other over, right? There's no Jacob Esau dynamic between them where they're described as hating each other. When Leah is described as hated, it's by Jacob, and we'll get into that when we talk about Leah.
Yeah, we'll do that next time. Yeah.
But when Jacob talks to them about leaving, they answer him with one voice. And to me, there's a level of maybe love, certainly maturity there in the two of them to be able to live in that situation together with the biological kids and maids' kids and whatever, and to some degree make it work. Now, we know that this doesn't go great forever, but as long as they're both alive, none of these kids get sold into slavery or killed.
Yeah. And even that's a story of reconciliation. Does that make sense? We'll get to that later when we get to Joseph. But I agree with you. I would say that Rachel's story is part elevation, part sorrow, part deep frustration, and part blessing. And it's all commingled. But the core of her life probably is summed up in, 30:22, God remembered Rachel. And Leah's story, as we're going to study, is the same beats. Deep disappointment, tragedy, elevation by God, despite her secondary, despite her status, all sorts of stuff that's going on. And I would say, yeah, it does feel like the similar stories played out in similar beats. We're not supposed to see I don't think we're supposed to see them as one's bad, one's good, just like deeply complex, broken, fragmented people, both who experience sorrow and suffering and God's blessing and are trying to work their way through it, both of them at the same time. That's what I would say too.
So with that said, next episode, we'll take a closer look at Leah. This has been Character Study with David Tieche, and I'm Jon Fortt, signing off for this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please go to bible.fortt.com. That's bible.fortt.com, and join the email list to be the first to learn about our Bible plans on the YouVersion Bible app and other free resources. Character Study is a production of Fortt Media.